Annihilation of Caste by Dr. Ambedkar, a prominent figure in Indian social and political landscape, provides a critical examination of the caste system. Born into Dalit family in 1891, Ambedkar faced discrimination and inequality firsthand, which fueled his lifelong commitment to social reform. As an accomplished scholar and leader, he dedicated his life to advocating for the rights of marginalized communities. In this seminal work, Ambedkar not only analyzed the oppressive nature of the caste system but also calls for its complete abolition to achieve true social equality and individual liberation. His insightful critique, rooted in his own experience and expensive research, continue to inspire movements for justice and equality in India and beyond. Ambedkar critiqued the deep-seated inequality perpetuated by caste, urging for its complete eradication to achieve genuine social progress and individual autonomy. His analysis delved into the historical, religion, and societal dimension of the caste, shedding light of its oppressive structure and advocating for transformative social change. In his seminal work, Ambedkar dismantled the notion that caste is merely a division of labor by birth. He asserts that caste is a system of social hierarchy forced through the religious sanctions, political power, and economic exploitation. Ambedkar's favorite state, caste is not a physical object like a wall or a brick or a line of barbed wire, and prevents Hinduism from co-mingling with which, therefore, to be pulled down. Caste is a notion, it's a state of mind. Ambedkar highlights that caste is not just a physical barrier but a deeply ingrained minds and divides people based on the birth. It is not something tangible that can be physically demolished. The caste is a notion, social construct, and needed to be dismantled through a change in mindset and attitude. Ambedkar highlights how the caste system permeates every aspect of life, from marriage to occupation, education, social interaction, restrictions and opportunities, and freedom. Those born in lower caste, he writes, caste has killed public spirit. Caste has destroyed the sense of public charity. Caste has made public opinion impossible. Virtue has become caste-ridden, and morality has become caste-bound. This illustrates the pervasive influence of caste and individual behavior and societal norms. Moreover, Ambedkar critiqued the Hindu scriptures and religious leaders for perpetuating and legitimizing caste-based discrimination. He challenges the ideas of purity and pollution inherent in caste ideology. It is this notion of the caste mode. Through his analysis, Ambedkar advocates for the annihilation of caste, not just its reform. He argues for the adoption of the new social order based on principle of equality and justice, where individuals are valued for their ability and character, not their birth. He writes, the real remedy for breaking caste is intercaste marriages. Nothing else will serve as the solvent of caste because it gives the chance to the fusion of the blood. He argues that the ultimate solution to breaking caste barriers lies in intercaste marriage. It is also challenged the very foundation of the caste by breaking down the barriers of lineage and birth. Only through such intermingling caste can distinction be eroded and true equality be achieved. This radical proposal changes the very foundation of the caste system and calls for the fundamental transformation of Indian society. Ambedkar underscored the transformative power of education for forecasting political freedom and social change. Education empowerment individuals to challenge oppressive system and advocate for their rights, laying the groundwork for a more equitable society. He recognizes the courage required to defy societal norm and advocate for social reform, suggesting that challenging entrenched social hierarchies often require more bravery than opposing political tyranny. Leaders who challenge societal injustice pave the way for meaningful social change. Political tyranny is nothing compared to the social tyranny, and a reform who defies society is such more courageous than the politicians who defies government. It captures the essence of Ambedkar's critique of caste and his call for radical social reform. He recognizes the courage required to defy social reform and advocate the social reform, suggesting that the challenging entrenched social hierarchies often require more bravery than opposing political tyranny. Leaders who challenge societal injustice pave the way for meaningful societal change. His social and political ideologies were greatly influenced by his personal experience with caste-based persecution. Described in Annihilation of Caste, Ambedkar is a prime example of struggle against caste prejudice and quest for social injustice, and evidences by his life trajectory, which is marked by education, action, and leadership. The Indian Constitution was drafted in large part because the B.R. Ambedkar who also actively fought for the rights of the marginalized groups. In Annihilation of Caste, Ambedkar explores the numerous ways in which the caste system uphold the prejudice and subjugation of the Dalits and other marginalized communities. He contended that the basic premise of the caste system is untouchability, which keeps Dalit outside the mainstream society. Dalits were often denied access to education, economic opportunity, and social mobility, and were made to perform menial tasks like street sweeping, handling dead bodies, manual scavenging. Ambedkar effectively illustrates the violence, both physical and psychological, inflicted upon the Dalits by providing instances of crime, humiliation, and enslavement. He argues that the untouchability is deeply ingrained in the societal fabric, perpetuating Dalit sense of the inferiority and worthlessness, and it goes beyond simple physical segregation. Ambedkar also emphasized the generational aspect of the caste-based operation, which keep individuals in a specific caste. Ambedkar criticized the Hindu religion in his essay, along with the caste system and male male-dominated religious scriptures that perpetuate and propagate hatred and self-interest and neglect the women. The actual way of dismantling the caste system, he contends that elimination of the religious belief that serve the foundation, rather than lying solely on intercaste marriage and dining. And that is why Ambedkar says that break the sanctity of Shastras. Ambedkar advocates for various approaches of eliminating caste, an instrument for empowering impoverished advocate education, saying that agitate and organize must be our watchword. In addition, he highlights the necessity of political mobilization, urging them to assert their rights and seek representation. In addition, he stressed the significance of legislative changes to to rid of the discriminatory practice and guarantee everyone's equal right. Ambedkar saw these strategies as part of concrete contempt to overthrow the caste system and establish an egalitarian, just society. In Annihilation of Caste, Ambedkar outlined concepts that the profoundly influence Indian political and cultural system. His criticism of the caste system spurred social movements for equality and justice by increasing awareness and activism. For non-Dalit, it is about introspection, about initiating the process of annihilation of caste within their own community. And most importantly, this movement is about privileged caste communities acknowledging the respecting and actions and leadership of Dalit activism. It is about listening to their stench critique of the caste system in Indian society and acting to address those critics. Such role of non-Dalit in anti-caste movement is very important and needed for it to progress to its full potential. Any interest of non-Dalit in the anti-caste movement without exposing, questioning and destroying the caste-based belief and practice within their own communities and societal spaces is a fraud and should be called so. It is mainly to wake non-Dalits from their passivity when it comes to fighting the caste system. That is now importance to distinguish between the Dalit movement and the anti-caste movement. Through this, his critique, Ambedkar highlight the insidious influence of the caste on all aspects of life and emphasize urgent need for its annihilation. He underscores the importance of challenging ingrained belief, advocating the intermarriage, promoting education, and defying societal norms to usher in a more just and egalitarian society. Ambedkar's words continue to inspire generations to confront and dismantle the oppressive structure of the caste, remaining us of ongoing struggle for equality and justice. The enduring work continues to resonate for its powerful insight into the pervasive impact that caste and ongoing quest for equality and justice in India. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, also known as Baba Saheb Ambedkar, was one of the most prominent lawyer, economist, politician, social reformers who inspired the Dalit movement and campaigned against social discrimination against the untouchables. He played a significant role for uplifting of the downtrodden. He was considered a messiah for a suppressed class and also belonged to the untouchable community. He is considered as the great critique of the caste system and present the idea is complete annihilation of caste. His prominent works Caste in India, Their Mechanism, Genesis and Development 1916, Muknayak Weekly 1920, The Problem of Rupee, Its Origin and Its Solution 1923, Bahishkrit Bharat India 1927, Janta Weekly 1930, Annihilation of Caste 1936, and Federation versus Freedom 1939. His prominent works are Caste in India, Their Mechanism, Genesis and Development 1916, Destruction of religion, as measured as it seems in prologue of his essay Annihilation of Caste, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has explained its actual meaning instead of literal idea and people collect while hearing. Here in the prologue, Mr. Ambedkar gives an insight of the conversation by the medium of letter and member of the Jat Path Todak Mandal sent for caste to address the issues of caste system among Hindus and accept the uh, presidency of the Mandal in the upcoming conference. As Ambedkar wrote the address to his own terms, corresponding his original opinion, caste system, the Mandal was completely against it. They read the term destruction of religion, Vedas, in address and asked him change the certain paragraph and a conference will have to be cancelled. On the Ambedkar wrote, I care more for my faith than for any honor from you. Ambedkar's Annihilation of Caste is a revolutionary speech prepared by him in 1936, annual conference for the Lahore. Due to certain above mentioned miscomprehensions, it was not delivered in the conference. Ambedkar invited the socialists to fight against the caste system. In his speech, he addressed how the caste system is not only harming the minorities but also hindering the development of the majority. Probably for the first time, Ambedkar posed a number of important and thought provoking questions regarding caste in The Annihilation of Caste. Initially, he agreed with the argument of caste-based and labor division and argued that it was a division of laborers rather than the division of labor. Caste system is not merely a division of labor, also it's a division of laborers. In this speech, Ambedkar provides examples of how Dalits were denied access to education, employment, opportunities and stigma, manual labor, which led to their virtual economic enslavement. Also discussed how they were separated from society and denies basic rights like the ability to drink water from public well. Most importantly, they were made segregated from the society by the upper class. Like he mentioned, Balais, untouchable community in central India, were given a list of rules to confirm if they wanted to live among them. Dr. Ambedkar then challenged the claim made by Hindu people to centralize caste system as a merely malpractice, but the emphasis on the other aspect that are being constantly affected by the caste system. He starts with targeting socialists. The religion is the source of power is illustrated by the history of India, where the priests hold sway over the common man, often greater than that of the magistrate. He also addressed the economic aspects of how division of labor is forced led to particular community neglecting their individual sentiments and preferences, but most prominently explored the biological strength that Hindus have been using in defense that the objective of the caste has been to preserve the purity of the race, but as the acclaimed purity of the race was never there to begin with, these religion institutions have used to them to justify the wrong. Caste does not result in economic efficiency. Caste cannot improve and has not improved a race. Caste has, however, done one thing. It has completely disorganized and demoralized the Hindus. The logic behind the annihilation of caste lies in the increasing immorality of the Hindus and had harmed them as well. Because caste system does not result in any kind of efficiency, but only in create inequality. Therefore, Dr. Ambedkar demands total annihilation of caste, destruction of religion, because people have taken the idea of caste to divine level. It has become their religious duty to stay away from the untouchables and treat people differently. To ensure the definite change in this notion, he further suggests to ask people to give up caste is to ask them to go contrary to their fundamental religious notion. It is obvious that the first and second species of the reforms are easy, but the third is a stupendous task, well high impossible. The Hindu hold to the sacredness of the social order. Caste has a divine basis. You have therefore destroyed the sacredness and divinity with which caste has become invested. This means you must destroy the authority and Shastras and the sanctity of the Vedas and Shastras. Ultimately, the system would have to be entirely rebuilt in order to give rise to a new view of Hinduism and as religion and society. Ambedkar says that although there is a little reason to believe that this will happen, it is noble objective to seek because the caste system need to be eliminated because it is oppressive and isolating system. Ambedkar, on the other hand, declares that he would approach his firm and outside looking completely rejected Hinduism and adopted Buddhism. Annihilation of caste seems a harsh approach, even nearly impossible to Dr. Ambedkar, but he assured his listener to work relentlessly towards this. Ambedkar believed that fusion of blood can only alone create the sense of kinship, and unless this feeling of kinship becomes dominant, the sense of alienation brought on by caste will persist. According to him, it must acknowledge that Hindu do not observe caste because they are inhuman but deeply religious. He states that the observing caste is not a mistake. Hindu religion, which follows the Shastras to understand the concept of caste, in his opinion, wrong. If this is true, then the enemies we face are not caste observant people, but the Shastras that have taught them this religion. It is pointless to criticize people for not intermarrying, interdining, occasionally hosting intercaste dinner and celebrations of the intercaste marriages. Ambedkar proclaimed that elimination, that belief in sanctity of the Shastra, is the real solution. Ambedkar proposes that the old rule of life that were practiced in the name of religion should be abolished, and the religion based on the principle should take their place. He regards the religion of the principle a genuine offer suggestion of reforming Hinduism. All Hindus ought to be able to agree and recognize a single standard book for Hindu religion. Naturally, this implies the Vedas, Shastras, Puranas, all of which are regarded as the sacred and dogmatic in the Hindu religion, must lay by law cease to be so. Preaching any religion or social doctrine from these works should be punished. Ambedkar processed the idea that priesthood should be based on the qualification rather than hereditary. Anyone he wants to be priest must be eligible for it, ought to be given by the regulation that no Hindu will consider as a priest's concept if he has qualified through an assessment recommended by the state, and should have a sanad permission from the government. It should also be illegal for the person with a sanad to officiate the priest, and if a ceremony is performed by the priest without a sanad, it should be considered illegal. The number of priests should be limited by the law according to the requirement of the state. Ambedkar gives his concept of an idea of Hindu society. He urged Hindus to establish a new theological foundation for their religion that is compatible with liberty, equality, and fraternity. In terms of the right to movement, freedom, and the right to life and body, few people oppose liberty. Liberty is not incompatible with the right to property, tool and materials necessary for earning a living and maintaining a reasonable level of health. However, to oppose the kind of the freedom is to maintain slavery. It happened when people are forced against their will to do certain prescribed jobs like the caste system. Ambedkar focuses remain on gaining equality and oppressed class, particularly Dalit, those considered as untouchables outside below the Hindu caste order. Arundhati Roy, in his work The Doctor and Saint, Caste Annihilation of Caste. Another aspect of Ambedkar's strategy was the assertion of Dalit rights and dignity. He advocated for empowerment of Dalit through education, political representation, and economic opportunities. His efforts led to the inclusion of affirmative action measures in Indian constitution, such as reservation in education and employment for marginalized communities. Ambedkar also emphasized the importance of education and enlightenment in challenging caste prejudice and empowering marginalized communities. He believed that education could serve as a powerful tool for liberation, enabling individuals to critically examine and transcend the boundaries of caste. He recognized the economic dimensions of the caste oppression, with marginalized communities often relegated to menial jobs and deprived of economic opportunities. He advocated for economic empowerment through the land reform, job reservation, affirmative actions policies to uplift the socio-economic status of Dalits and other marginalized groups. Ambedkar emphasized the need for social reform within Hinduism itself. He criticized the religion scriptures and practiced the perpetual caste-based discrimination, and called for reinterpretation of Hinduism that aligned with principles of equality and social justice. Ambedkar's conversion to Buddhism, along with thousands of his followers, was both a rejection of the caste-based Hinduism and reaffirmation of their commitment to equality and human dignity. Ambedkar advocated for mobilization and oppressed communities to assert their rights and demand social justice. He believed in the power of collective action and organized movements to challenge the status quo and confirm caste-based discrimination. While Ambedkar's vision of annihilation of caste was revolutionary, it faced numerous challenges and criticism. Traditionalist and upper caste elites opposed this idea, featuring loss of privilege and social status. Moreover, the deep-seated prejudice and social hierarchies entrenched in Indian society posed formidable obstacles to meaningful social transformation. Despite these challenges, Ambedkar's legacy continues to inspire generations of social reform and activities in India and beyond. He tirelessly the social justice and equality laid by groundwork of for significant social and political reform, including the reservation system and affirmative actions policies that have helped uplift marginalized communities. The struggle for the annihilation of caste remained a central theme in Indian ongoing quest for social justice and equality. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's logic for annihilation of caste remained a powerful and relevant framework for addressing caste-based discrimination and inequalities in India. Grounded in deep understanding of social dynamics and human right principles, Ambedkar's approach calls for a radical reordering of social relations structure to achieve true social justice and equality. While progress has been made since Ambedkar's time, caste based discrimination continues to int- uh, persist in various forms, highlighting the ongoing relevance of his ideas and need for continued effort towards annihilation of caste. In conclusion, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's logic for annihilation of caste was a radical and transformative vision aimed at dismantling the oppressive structure of the caste system. Through education, social mobilization, intercaste marriage, economic empowerment, and logical reform, he sought to empower marginalized communities and challenge entrenched caste prejudice. While his vision faced challenge and criticism, his legacy continues to inspire movements for social justice and equality, underscoring the enduring relevance of his ideas in contemporary world. Annihilation of Caste is an undelivered speech written in 1936 by B.R. Ambedkar. The speech was to be delivered at the annual conference of Jat Path Todak Mandal of Lahore. However, upon reviewing the rewritten speech, the conference organizers regarded its contents unbearable. Seeking removal of large section, Ambedkar declared in response that would not challenge a comma of this text. After much deliberation and committee of the organizers decided to cancel their annual conference in this entirety because they feared violence by Orthodox Hindus at the venue if they held the events with after withdrawing the invitation to him. Ambedkar proceeded to his self published the speech, which gained widespread popularity and prompted translation into multiple Indian languages. Ambedkar strongly opposed the caste system as it's not only crippled the growth of individual or society, but the nation as a whole. Ambedkar was critical of the Indian socialists as they ignored the problems arising out of the social order and viewed humans and economic beings. Social religion and economic reforms are necessary to bring harmony and solidarity in the society so that people are not divided among each other on the basis of the caste. As an economist, he talks about implications of the caste system on the economy and how it proves to be impracticable as it lead to unemployment among mass. The rigid Chaturvarna system prohibits people belonging from low community, that is Shudra, to attain education, which is in turn lead to their lower participation in economic activities. This lead to the issue of unemployment among the depressed classes. Ambedkar has stated that not letting one section of the society flourish, the denying them socio-cultural rights, hampers growth of the nation as a whole. In the fourth section of his speech, Ambedkar calls caste system as not merely a division of labor but also a division of laborers. Caste system fails to give credit to merit and hold birth status at the principal basis of one's occupation. In words, Ambedkar's individual sentiment, individual preference has no place. It based on the dogma of the predestination. He believes that caste system acts like a monster. It undermines the merit of an individual and discourages him to work to his full potential. His birth status determines the work an individual is going to perform in order to earn living, thereby denying the right to live a life of dignity and freedom of choice. Ambedkar says that Hindu society is a myth. The word Hindu itself is a foreign name which Mohammedans gave to the natives of the people of distinguish themselves from them. The Hindu society such as does not exist. It's only a collection of the caste and their consciousness is only for their survival. The level of openness operates when Hindu Muslim riots occur. On all other occasions, each caste endeavors to segregate itself to distinguish itself from others. He also compares Hindus with the non-Hindus by stating that the that the caste has created to not the same importance among non-Hindus as it's among Hindus. The effect of the caste on the ethics of Hindus, according to Ambedkar, is simply deplorable. He opines that caste has killed public spirit, public charity, and public opinion. A Hindu A Hindu's public is his caste. His responsibility is only to his caste. His loyalty is restricted only to his caste. Therefore, virtue has become caste ridden and morality has become caste bound. Ambedkar critically evaluated the suggestions offered by the social reformers to eradicate caste system and proposed several ways which will serve as the solvent of the caste. He proposes three major ways to abolish caste: abolishing subcaste, start intercaste dining, and intercaste marriages. Ambedkar did not support this viewpoint of the social reformers since there is no assurance that the elimination of the subcaste will inevitably result in the elimination of the caste. On the other hand, it is possible that the process will come to an end once subcastes are abolished. If so, elimination subcaste will imply serve to strengthen caste, give them more power, and make them more demanding. Ambedkar felt that inner caste dining was inadequate because many castes allows interdining but has not destroyed the spirit of the caste and consciousness of the caste. Ambedkar believes that fusion of blood can also create the sense of kinship, and unless this feeling of kinship become dominant, the sense of the elimination brought by the caste will persist. According to him, it acknowledged that Hindu do not observe caste because they are inhuman but deeply religious. He stated that observing caste is not mistake. Hindu religion, which follows the Shastras to understand the concept of the caste, is in opinion wrong. If this is true, then the enemies we face are not the caste observant. क्या कर रहे हो? Ambedkar's logic of annihilation of caste. B.R. Ambedkar, a prominent figure in India's struggle for independence and a leading voice against caste-based discrimination, articulated a powerful logic for the annihilation of caste. Born into a marginalized Dalit community, Ambedkar experiences first-hand oppressive nature of the caste system. Throughout his life, he tirelessly worked towards the emancipation of Dalit and the eradication of caste-based discrimination. Central to his vision was the concept of annihilation of caste, a term he popularized through his seminal work. Annihilation of caste was originally intended as a speech for Jat Pat Todak Mandal, Society for the Abolition of the Caste System, but was never delivered due to organizers' disagreement with its radical content. In this essay, Ambedkar's logic of annihilation of caste we are going to understand. To understand Ambedkar's logic, it is crucial to grasp the historical context of caste in India. The caste system, deeply ingrained in Indian society for centuries, divided people into rigid hierarchical groups based on birth. At the top were the Brahmin priest and the scholars, followed by Kshatriya, warrior and rulers, Vaishya, merchants and traders, and Shudra, manual laborers. Below these Varnas were Dalits, formerly known as untouchables, relegated to the lowest social strata and subjected to the severe discrimination and oppression. Ambedkar's upbringing in Dalit family exposed him to the systematic injustice perpetuated by the caste system. Despite facing immense discrimination, he pursued education and rose to become one of India's most influential leaders. His experience fueled his determination to challenge the caste system and fight for the rights of Dalits and other marginalized communities. Ambedkar vehemently criticized the caste system, arguing that it perpetuates inequality, oppression, and social stratification. He viewed caste not just as a social division but as a system of graded inequality that denied dignity and basic human rights to millions of people. According to him, caste is not just a division of labor but a division of laborers, creating an unjust hierarchy where birth determines one's destiny regardless of merit or ability. Ambedkar's logic of annihilation of caste was grounded in a deep understanding of social dynamics, history, and human rights. He rejected the notion that caste was merely a division of labor, instead viewing it as a view system of the graded inequality that denied individual rights and human dignity. Ambedkar's analysis went beyond economic consideration, organizing caste as a pervasive social institution that permeates all aspects of life. Central to Ambedkar's logic was the concept of social justice. He argued that the true social justice could only be achieved by dismantling the caste system and creating a society where every individual, regardless of the caste or social status, had equal rights and opportunities. Ambedkar's vision of social justice was inherently linked to the notion of democracy, liberty, and equality, principles enshrined in the Indian Constitution he helped draft. Ambedkar's logic of annihilation of caste has profound practical implications for the Indian society, and call for the annihilation of caste was a radical and transformative vision aimed to dismantling the oppressive structure of caste based discrimination. He believed that mere a reform or reformist approach would not suffice to eradicate caste. Instead, a fundamental overhaul of social, cultural, and political institutions was necessary. He recognized that addressing caste based discrimination requires more than just legislative reforms or economic development. Instead, it necessitated a fundamental record of social relation and structure. One key aspect of Ambedkar's approach was promotion of intercaste marriage as a means to break down the barriers of caste and foster social integration. He was marriage he saw marriage as a potent weapon against the caste prejudice. It challenges the notion of purity and pollution associated with caste. He believes that breaking down barriers between caste intercaste marriage could challenge the very foundation of caste system and foster create social cohesion. Ambedkar himself set an example by marrying Brahmin woman Ramabai in a symbolic act of defiance against caste system.